whether you tell the truth about everything or whether you don't. So I just think that, after being a jerk much of my life, and telling lies, and seeing how the whole business worked. I worked for the Department of Defense, for God's sake.
Oh, really?
I had a security clearance when I was in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
I was DOD, but I was DOD with, as a civilian.
Okay.
So I saw all kinds of shit.
Mm.
And you and me, we see it all the time.
Sure.
So it's there, and it's been there for a long, long time. In different manifestations.
Mm.
But and there are interesting things that are happening now. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not the same old. I don't think.
No, yeah, exactly. I want to kind of tie this all together, I guess, because in a sense you were talking about, the ability for people to break free and break out of all of this and actually following your own, truth or whatever, your own line, the stuff that you want to do. And I mean, I know that on your show you speak a lot about, for example, we keep returning there, 2012, and the idea of this, something new actually coming in. Is this something that you tie together, these two?
Well, I think that, the whole 2012 business, again, it's a double-edged sword because it's already being used, for, to peddle goods, essentially. But that's okay. I mean, I recognize capitalism is not all that bad. The problem is when you combine capitalism with materialism, those two things together become very problematic. Capitalism with a spiritual outlook behind it can probably help a lot of people.
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's
combined with materialism, the idea that it's just me, nobody else. There's no spirit involved. It's the he who dies with the most fucking toys wins.
Yeah.
And screw everybody else, including the planet.
Sure.
This is the problem with capitalism combined with materialism. So
yeah.
I have no problem with capitalists, but be a capitalist with a heart.
Sure.
Be a capitalist with some spirit. Recognize that that you're not the only one, and there are other people that are trying to do their best in the middle of this. And there are, everyone's worried about the fucking apocalypse. The apocalypse has already happened for 95% of this planet.
Elaborate on that for us.
Well, look around. Go to Bombay. I mean, go to Darfur, whatever.
Yeah.
The great majority of the people on this planet, and I'm not over exaggerating when I say 95%. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
People are in deep despair. It is Armageddon-ish, right? So anything that comes next, whatever it is, I mean, as this whole thing sort of comes to a close, which is the way I see 2012 as sort of a moniker to sort of hang our hat on. I don't think it's going to happen overnight in 2012.
Sure.
I think that we're in the middle of it right now. I think that we're seeing all this change happening. And but the idea that it's all bad is see, this is the magic trick that's trying to be pulled, right? 9/11 is a magic trick.
Yeah, sure.
Right? But like all magicians, there's a level of skill. And other magicians can call you out. See?
Yeah, sure.
And a guy like Kent Steadman, he's a wizard. That's why if you go to Orbit, you'll see the whole track from day one of 9/11. I was on the phone with him. We were on the telephone. And you know what he said to me?
No.
The first word out of his fucking mouth? He said Reichstag.
Oh, really? Huh.
Reichstag. It was the first word out of his mouth. He knew, right? Of course he knew. He's seen it all before, and he pays attention to history. Right?
Yeah, sure.
So there's no news. The problem is, the media and all this stuff, people that call themselves journalists when they're not, they're clowns and they're lapdogs or whatever, but,
sure.
Whatever. If people aren't smart enough to see it and recognize it, it's their own trouble.
Yeah.
And I see the thing as coming undone. The web, the World Wide Web is such a great metaphor, for all this stuff because, when you're full of shit, the web becomes too difficult to manage. Right? The spider that lies all the time can't manage his own web, right?
Yeah.
Well, but if you're a cool spider and you got your act together, no problem. The web is your friend, right? Well, this is what's going on. I mean, these guys are getting wrapped up in their own so deeply in their own deceit that they're becoming depotentiated. And I mean this in a physical sense, Henry. They have not been able to pull another 9/11, and don't think they wouldn't love to.
So that's interesting. So do you think that, in a sense, all the people actually watching these guys actually are working as an intelligence community in themselves, and that?
Well, yeah, and the fact that there are good people too. There are good people too. There's just as many good people as there are bad people. I mean, right? I mean, plus or minus, you got to figure. So, they're all, whether they're screaming it to the rooftop or not might be another story, right? But obviously someone is doing something.
Sure.
Because again, I always go back to the first primary set of data. The first primary set of data is me, my experience.
Yeah.
Not what somebody tells me, not what I read in a book or what somebody's screaming through a bullhorn. It's what's happening in my life.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, in my life, I couldn't live in a more white bread town. I live in the middle of Missouri, one of the notches, in the Bible Belt. Okay? And I talk it up, Henrique. I say my piece, and I invite people to my home. I invite everyone, the chief of police, the mayor, whoever, come on out. If you're a friendly person and you want to have a nice dialogue and a conversation, you are welcome.
That's good, yeah.
But if you come out and you want to be an asshole, well, I don't care what your laws say. I don't care what your piece of paper says. I will lay your fucking ass out. Right?
Yeah, sure.
And like I say, I do my thing. And so this is what I think that people should be doing. As long as you don't harm others, do your thing. And say what you want to say, be creative, do your art, get bent out of shape if you want, right? But do your thing. And don't get caught up in the idea that somebody else controls you. You have to be smart, don't get me wrong. You still got to be smart.
Sure.
It doesn't mean you don't have to be smart. I mean, I'm smart. I put myself in a situation where I can do the things that I do. But that requires intelligence.
Yeah.
And it also requires something else, Henry. It requires a recognition that the entire world is not human. That there are other things going on here. There are other plants and other creatures, animals that we share this planet with, right?
Yeah.
And they are sick and tired of being ignored. And that's the way it is. In other words, we look at other species as if they're just shit, right? And that we're the only ones that somehow, and we give ourselves all this credit. And look at the mess that we've made. Right?
Yeah, sure.
And we talk about our wonderful intelligence and all this stuff. So the first thing that human beings and individuals and cultures and societies need to do is get off their own goddamn high horse and recognize what a bunch of dumbasses they really are, right? And about how silly we've become, and about how stupid we've become, and about how much we've lost and how much we've forgotten. And you go back to the earth is the first place to begin. This is where you all come from, all of us. Black, white, green, red. I don't give a shit, right? This is where we come from. And, the answers are all there. I say this on my radio show all the time. We're not in a situation where we need to find the answers. We're in a situation where we need to face the answers.
Yeah. That's a good take on it, and very interesting one too. I mean, you
alternative energy and all this shit. All this stuff's out there.
Sure, absolutely.
It's been out there for 100 years, Henry.
Yeah, sure.
It's just that we haven't done anything with it. We've allowed ourselves, and maybe it's something we had to go through, and we're coming out of it now. But we have allowed ourselves to be manipulated. We've bought into a massive pottage by a small group of, primarily ill-willed, people or whatever.
Sure.
And they're doing their best to hold on right now.
Who has given the
cat's out of the sack.
And they have given the illusion of control. That's what you're saying.
That's all it is an illusion. The whole thing's a magic trick, right? But and again, once you're hip to the magic, and when you realize you can do your own magic, real magic. In other words, this is where these people have lost it. You see, their magic, Henrique, is techno magic, right?
Yeah.
But what they're actually doing is they're aping. They're trying to copy real magic.
Sure.
The magic of the spirit that they deny exists, you see? But just because you deny that something exists does not make it so. And what is happening, and what we are a part of, and privileged to be a part of, is the reawakening of real magic. The spirit is coming back, the return of the word as truth. For 5,000 years, the word has been bullshit. Lies.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, now the word is returning. Just like they said it would in the Bible and all the other books, right? That have been manipulated and twisted and turned into crap. Well, you know what? The word didn't care. It kept working its way right along anyway. Right?
Yeah.
And now is the return. And I think that people who recognize this are actually seeing magic in their own lives. And I see it in my own life.
Fascinating. Yeah.
And like I say, I just go off my own experience and what's happening to me.
So is this is this a tricky part, kind of to discover that? Is this something we need to open our eyes to in regards to our connectedness with all things around us? How
human heart. It's the one thing that nobody talks about. Everyone's talking about the brain and brain, all this shit. You know that 65% of the cells that make up not only your heart but the entire pericardial sac that it lives in are neurons. Neurons, no different than the ones blipping and blapping between your ears.
And you know, and you know what? I heard actually that the heart has more electrical activity.
Well, of course, this is why you can actually take an EKG from across the room. Wireless now. You can't do it with an EEG, right? In other words, the brain doesn't generate near the electromagnetic field of the heart. Now, of course, what do we know about magnetic fields, Henry? We know there's a tremendous amount of energy, and I associate it with anywhere there's energy. I'm not arrogant. Anywhere there's energy, I see intelligence. Yeah,
life. Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the heart is a deep center of intelligence. And we have essentially, for 500 years cut ourselves, and this is the modern scientific, Cartesian methodology where, if you can't bang on it with a hammer, it doesn't exist.
Yeah,
this
sure.
whole sort of idea, which is silliness. But,
yeah, sure.
But the bottom line is those ideas were a disconnect. And they basically said that the human, somehow the mind, right, which has never been, nobody's isolated the mind. Nobody's isolated human consciousness and said, oh, yeah, the mind comes from the brain.
There it is, yeah, exactly.
Nobody knows where the fuck the mind comes from. It comes from wherever it wants to come from.
Sure.
My opinion is that it comes from the entire organism. In other words, again, it's a system. The brain isn't anything special. The brain without the heart is dead. All right? The brain without the kidneys is dead. Everything without the rest of the system is done. So it's a systemic thing.
Sure.
The heart is a big part of the system, just like everything else. And we should be listening to our hearts, just like we should be listening to our minds, our brains, and our guts, what we eat and all this stuff.
Sure.
But I think, again, all the great poets, all the great mystics, all the people that we're supposed to be listening to, the Christs and the Buddhas and the Krishnas and all the wonderful people, that have come before us.